Hey, everybody, welcome back to the Green Egg Girl podcast. So, I had a really awesome opportunity last week. I get to go on Marquett Davon's podcast, and he asked me a whole series of questions that I had no idea what they were ahead of time. Never actually spoken to Marquette before that. It's really neat. There's a few things that I've been pondering on and questions in the comments, so on and so forth, that I figured I would address today, and I'll have that podcast linked for those of you who haven't seen it. Let's go! So I'd seen Marquette's reels a time or two. They're on X every once in a while. So he reached out and commented on one of mine that I had posted on X and said, collab. And we managed to make it work on a day where we had thunderstorms and lightning and torrential rain coming through where I'm at. And he was in a foreign country. So he had sketchy internet. My internet was sketchy beyond all reckoning. We even had a power outage here in the middle of it. So that was super fun. If you watch that podcast, you'll see some intermittent. We missed each other on a couple of things. There was even more cut out. I think he's fixed a lot of it. I've gone back and watched it in hindsight. He seems to have managed to fix it, make it a little less glitchy than it was live. 100% don't have anything bad to say about Marquette. He was a really good dude for letting me come on. I hope we get to talk again in the future. I think we agree on a good handful of things. And I think we disagree on a whole myriad of things. And I think it's really important to have conversations with people that you just don't agree with more often. I think it's important to go watch content of people you don't agree with. I think when you have conversations with people like that, it galvanizes your own opinion as you think on it and mull over it later. And it solidifies you in your belief system on the whole. So I always think things like this are important. Plus, he's got a lot bigger following than I do, obviously. So fantastic opportunity. Interesting questions, things I've definitely never thought of. One of the biggest one is, if a wife disrespects her husband, should she have to put her hands down and be blasted across the face by her husband? No, I fundamentally disagree with that. I don't think that's a safe thing across the board. My stance on that, I come from a Christian perspective. And while the Bible doesn't blatantly say that it's something that cannot be done, it's not something that is represented in any way either. So Jesus actually stopped men from harming women that they were allowed to do under law. So under Jewish law, men were allowed to stone women. And Jesus actually actively stopped them and said, let he who is without sin cast the first stone. So I don't believe that it's okay to just slap women around. I don't think that jives at all with Jesus and the person that he is. So no, I don't think that that should be a thing. Also, women are called to submit themselves to their husband. The act of submission is, in fact, an act. We are to submit to our husbands as we do to God, and husbands are to love their wives as Christ loved the church. So, husbands' behavior should reflect on Christ towards the church. He was very firm, he was very serious, but he didn't slap the church around. He whipped Jews in a synagogue, said he'd put a millstone around the neck of pedophiles and sink them to the bottom of the river, which was cool. But as far as the church, he was very stern and straightforward, but he wasn't slapping anybody around. Where I stand on it. And as far as women submitting to their husbands, submission is an act. And if you're to submit to your husband the way you would to God, then you have free will. There are consequences if you don't. Your marriage will not be good. The chances of your husband going out of his way to just always be loving to you when you're not fulfilling your end, probably not so great. Just a thought. So it is an act. It is an act of humbling yourself and giving the authority and the power over to your husband. That doesn't mean that there's not going to be times you're human, you're fallible, do better, constantly do better. There's times where I get a little riled up and my husband checks me. That's part of love. Part of love is check yourself before you wreck yourself. But Physical abuse does not constitute love. Train your children, train your daughters to respect and love their husbands and be willing to submit to them. Help your daughters choose men that are going to love them and take very good care of them. Make it as easy as possible. Outside of that, there you have it. So the other thing Marquette got into was makeup. That was a big one, wearing makeup. And he said that he pities me more. He has compassion for me more if I don't have makeup on. That's cool. Don't care. Not really looking for pity or compassion from other men. I have a husband I'm very well taken care of. For me personally, when I go out with my husband and I have makeup on, I'm a reflection of him. I reflect on my husband. How I look, how I present myself reflects upon my husband. I try to look nice. I try to be put together because my husband allows me the opportunity to look nice and be put together. So I'm going to make sure that I take the time and look very nice and go out with him. He does very much appreciate it. He got a little bit of a kick out of Marquette getting a little testy about that one, but they can hash that out. Anybody that wants to talk to my husband, please, by all means, do. I am not his mouthpiece. This is just my podcast, so you're getting my perspective. So, anyway, when I go out with my husband or I'm just out in public and I see men with their wives and their wives are looking dowdy, which, by the way, you missed that in the podcast. Dowdy means plain and unattractive. It is a very common term in classic literature, which is some of my favorite. So I used it. I think it got misinterpreted, misheard, not sure. Again, internet connection was bad. But if I see women who look really plain and all of that and their husband's very well put together, I assume that they don't have a whole lot by way of respect for their husband personally. So it could be completely off base, but cursory glance wise, that's how I am. I always had a mom who my mom's not a glam person by any stretch, but she's always very well put together. Her hair was always neat. She looked good leaving the house. She reflected very well on my stepdad. So I follow suit. That's how I roll. So there's that. Also, in the comments, I saw someone questioning what I was drinking, accusing me of drinking alcohol. It's actually sparkling water. So I drink sparkling water while I'm on the podcast. I do get thirsty, especially when having a 2 hour long conversation, or really just in general. Plus, it's summertime now where I'm at. Late spring, early summer is about the same thing here. So it tends to get a little bit dry. Gotta have some water, guys. I'm sorry I don't drink in podcast. That's just kind of not my vibe. It doesn't really allow for the best thinking as time goes on. So would never do that. Not saying I don't drink from time to time, but while podcasting, it's not going to be a thing. Let's see what else. Oh, so Marquette said many times that he doesn't debate religion and then proceeded to debate religion for like an hour and throw odd sections of the Bible at me. I just want to make sure you all understand I don't take criticism from people who don't know Jesus. I really am not out to debate a bunch of religion with people. Marquette said women shouldn't read the Bible. It's in the Bible. Yet to come across it. My stepdad's actually a Bible scholar and pastor. He knows all of the original language and yeah, verified false. So, women, please read the Bible. Please learn the nature of God. Am I a Bible scholar? Absolutely not. Do I have questions? Yes, and I pick up the phone. I have very good, deep discussions with my husband, but when I need a deeper, better understanding because there's something in the language that confuses me, I call my stepdad and I say, hey, this is what I'm reading, and I'm not sure I understand what on earth they're saying because that just rubbed me wrong. And he always knows exactly what the actual breakdown is. So if anyone's wondering, that's my stance on it. That's where I am. I am far from a biblical scholar, but I can understand the Bible well enough to understand the nature of God and who he is and to continually read and have a better understanding as time goes on. I will, and I will continue to read because, us women, we shouldn't be in the church making a bunch of noise and all of that. But at the same time, you should know God. I thoroughly encourage people to read the Bible for yourself and understand who God is and the nature of who he is. Because having grown up in the church, there was a lot of indoctrination that I didn't even realize that was there until later. And it really drove me away. So I will continue to read my Bible. Nobody's going to stop me. Certainly not someone who thinks that the epitome of Christianity is the Amish, the Mennonites, the Mormons, and the Jehovah's Witnesses. Jehovah's Witnesses and Mormons, for sure, are cult sects that they have a lot of things that they've added in that are just not kosher with Christianity. And then the Amish, obviously, they're kind of next level. They don't believe in any modern technology. Absolutely lovely people. Have never had a negative interaction with them. And for those who don't know, Mennonites are like one generation outside of the Amish. They tend to be, I think it actually started with those who walked away from the Amish tradition. So they use modern technology, but they still have very similar customs. At least a lot of the Mennonites I know, that is the situation. They decided to leave the Amish church and they became Mennonite, was kind of like the next step. Also gone to Mennonite churches. Lovely people. Also pacifists. I don't believe in pacifism. So again, very long story if anybody has questions. I will clarify when I circle back to it. But I don't believe in pacifism. I don't believe Jesus was a pacifist. He literally threatened some people. It's it's better for you to have a millstone tied around your neck than to harm one of my children. Yeah, don't harm children, guys, because Jesus got like super mafia done on that one. He was going to sink you to the bottom of the river. Okay, that's not pacifist behavior. You're not supposed to lay down and just, let your family get murdered, let other people get murdered. It's really not an acceptable thing. And God does have enemies, and you're allowed to actually have those enemies. The people who do terrible things in the eyes of God are in fact your enemies. That's an okay stance to have. Hope you understand that. So Marquette also, he has a degree from Berkeley. It's all over his X. He talks about it quite often. So he's big on educational level. I hold 2 degrees. I'm not someone who puts a whole lot of anything into education. I had a little bit of hubris coming out of college, but the honest truth is one of the smartest people I have ever worked for was a man who had a GED and started working at the very bottom in a factory and worked his way up. He managed engineers and he understood more than all of the other engineers. I have just unlimited amounts of respect for the man, and he never touched a degree. So to me, having a degree meant a lot more back in the day. It doesn't so much now. No, not everybody actually chooses to go get a degree. I actually have a brother who is brilliant and incredibly well read, but he's interested in specific things. So those are the things he's incredibly well read on. If anybody's ever read Solzhenitsyn, my brother has read like everything by him. And I'm here to tell you, Russian literature is not easy to get through. I have a hard time with it. I'm more of a Kafka girl because it's short. Okay. My brother's incredibly well read, doesn't have a college degree. I honestly hold to he's smarter than me, and he doesn't have a degree because formal education was really not his jam. He doesn't want to sit and study a bunch of things that people tell him to study. He wants to go and actively search out the resources and learn them for himself. I actively search out resources and learn things myself that I didn't have a formal education in. So I'm not one who puts a whole lot of stock into, oh, well, they have to be an expert in their field. Well, you can absolutely be an expert in your field by becoming an expert and teaching yourself. You don't actually need someone else to read it and interpret it and spoon feed it to you. It's my personal stance. I get, I understand where Marquette's coming from. It's a really cool thing to have a degree from a really specialized university. Good on you if you do. But at the same time, that really doesn't make you superior to someone else who could be equally or more educated than you and you just don't know. Not everybody goes around advertising what degrees they have, where they have them from, because some of us really just don't put much stock into it because we could be trounced in any kind of field we step into because someone else is better read on the subject and put more time and effort into it. It's more of a diligence game than it is where you went to school and how formally educated you are, so on and so forth. But that, again, well, this is my podcast. That's my opinion. If you're here, hi, you're always going to hear my opinion because this is my podcast. Also, Marquette was funny. All of the discussions we kind of had, not all, the majority of the questions we had, he was asking like this thin little narrow slice. I deal with bigger, broader subjects as a general rule because if this applies to the vast majority of everybody, then what's the point of arguing some little nuanced topic? So you can sit and you can have all kind of logic in here, and if it doesn't conform to here, then you're retarded. Okay, I'm a big, broad, sweeping. Women can't drive. Okay, are there exceptions to the rule? Sure. Anybody who watched NASCAR with Dan Patrick knows, guys, women really can't drive. Okay, even the best of the women who decide they want to compete with the men, they don't. But again, all up, all in, great discussion. Definitely had me thinking about things I've never thought about before. Going back, watching it, I gotta tell you, like, it's one thing for me to watch my podcast as I edit it and get it ready to go out. It is very strange to go watch yourself talk to someone else. I don't know why. For me, it was very odd, but I sincerely hope that we get a chance to have another discussion again, probably more in the realm of topics that I actually enjoy. I know the same person who said, what was she drinking because she got more energetic at the end? He got into my wheelhouse at the end, guys. I hate the government. If you're here, if you've been listening to my podcast, I deeply, with a passion, can't stand the government. I think they are corrupt from top to bottom. Anytime you get me talking about that, I'm amped. I'm amped. That is my jam. That's my bread and butter. Random things I've really never thought about before. I'm going to give an off the cuff answer, but I'm not going to give you the big, broad diatribe that I can give you because on the things that I know, because that's the nature of the beast, right? If your mind is constantly on, this is really messed up in the government and things need to get fixed and how do we fix them and kind of attack that all day, every day. And then you get asked if it should be okay for a man to slap his wife. That's a much harder question to answer. Gut check. No, I don't think it is. You can accuse me of being an emotional woman. That's fine. It is my stance and it is my right to have my own personal opinions. So there we are. And the last thing, so I actually made my mom mad because right at the end, Marquette and I had been talking for 2 hours and we got a question in the comments of which wife loves her husband more, the one who would let him have a second wife or the one who wouldn't. I just like logic answered, it's the woman who allows her husband to have a wife. Here's the thing. I'm Christian. I believe in one man, one woman marriage. Marriage in Christianity, real, true marriage, is a covenant between a man and a woman in the eyes of God. Okay. You've made a covenant to be with that person and be committed to that person for the rest of your life. And you made that covenant with that person with God. That's my stance on it, which means piece of paper from the government doesn't mean jack crap, which means I don't actually believe that gay marriage, atheistic marriage, non-religious marriage, I don't believe any of that's actual marriage. Okay. As a Christian, I believe the only true marriage is the covenant between man, woman, and God. So, on a broad sweeping, what the world believes marriage to be, it's a piece of paper with the government, okay? I don't believe that a Christian man's going to come home and want to add a wife to the home because, again, that's not what marriage is, okay? But if you're looking at the piece of paper, clearly there's something that's not happening in that household, and he's wanting to add extra wives to fulfill something, okay? Go do your thing with the government. I don't care. That's really my stance on it. That's the logic answer on it. If my husband came home and said, I want another wife, I'd just laugh because it's a joke. That's where I'm at. All right. I don't believe that it jives with Christianity. So logic answer, yeah, sure. Okay. Do what you're going to do. At least it's better. The woman's still being taken care of. The kids are being taken care of. It's really going to mess up those kids. But okay, real marriage is different. My marriage is different. Okay. We have vows and we have vows with God. So yes, I did answer that question that way. This is something though, I've listened to so many dating podcasts and so many conversations about this that it's really just a little nutty because this comes up all the time. Here's my ultimate belief, guys. If everybody would come to Christ and we had whole family units the way we used to, with lots of kids and wives that submitted to their husbands and husbands who love their wives the way Christ loved the church, the world would right itself. Currently, that's not the world we live in. The world I pray for, the world I desperately want my children to grow up in. Okay, that's it. Anybody watches that, like I said, I'll link it in the description for this video. Anybody watches it, has any more questions on things, you can definitely see that I'm answering off the cuff, because what the crap have I thought about this stuff for before ever? I haven't. Didn't know anything beforehand, had no idea what the podcast was going to be. Definitely a good time. Definitely stressful with the weather coming through here, my internet stopping, my power going out, Marquette overseas with his internet being sketchy, and housekeeping interrupting, and people playing music in the background in the hotel. It was a wild time. It was a good time. I sincerely hope that on a bright, sunshiny day where I live, and when he is in a first world country with great internet, that we can have a discussion again. Because I value having discussions with people you don't agree with. I think it's a great thing. I think it's better for society. I think people get to see different opinions and different lines of thought and go from there. So I hope you have a fantastic day. Talk to you later.